In 1983, they put up IRIS, the infrared satellite. 9 months after they put IRIS up, they announced that they had found this brown dwarf. And 2 days later, they denied it. There's a little comet called Elenin. Now, according to NASA, this was discovered by a Russian amateur astronomer. And you can even find a page about him and information about him on the web. And he discovered this tiny little comet. I did a little bit of checking with some colleagues of mine in LA, one of whom who is very closely connected in. He's a past president of the Navy Reserve, very connected in through the CIA and the FBI. And I asked him about this Elenin, discovered by Leonid Elenin. I said, "What's the story?" He said, "He doesn't exist. It's a cover name." He said, "It's not a comet." And we'll go into why it's not a comet. But it's coming from the constellation of Leo. The whole project is under the overview of the National Institute of Defence. And Elenin is an acronym for Extinction Level Event Near Impact Nibiru. So do you remember when Comet Kohoutek came through and Comet Halley came through? And whenever there was a comet coming through, NASA are jumping up and down saying, "You've got to see it, it's going to look fantastic. It's going to be across the sky," and there was all of this hype about comets, 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 comets. Heard anything from NASA about Elenin? Because guess what? At its closest point to the Earth, it's only 21 million miles away. That's 1/5 the distance between us and the Sun. Most of the other comets that they've talked about have been out here somewhere. 400, 500 million miles away. And they were jumping up and down. And they're saying nothing about this? Those of you who have read the books of Baval and West, who say that Orion is the copy of the stars in the sky, that when you see the pyramids on the ground in Giza, they're a mirror image. They're not a copy of it. They're a mirror image. And the Egyptians don't work that way. So the only way that those could match up would be if the pyramids were built when the Earth was up the other way. So the pyramids were built before the last pole shift. The Sphinx used to have a lion's head. And if you knew that something was going to happen on a particular date in your calendar, what would you do? You'd mark it. Ahead of schedule, you'd mark it. Well, they knew thousands of years ahead that something was going to come from the constellation of Leo at that time when it lines up there. So the Sphinx wasn't built at the time that it lines up. It was built way before it as a warning to say, when this lines up in the constellation of Leo, that's when the shit's going to hit the fan. And that was the last pole shift. There's a time now where Nibiru and our Earth are travelling at the same rate. So we're not seeing any major changes because it's still around about 1.5 AU away. February 27th, 2010, this little comet was in a direct alignment between the Earth and the Sun. Direct alignment. Now, vibrational harmonics work such that if they directly line up, you get an amplification of energy. So gravitational waves are no difference to that. If they line up, the gravitational waves amplify. So on that date, there was an earthquake in Chile of, it was huge, 9 point something or other. September 4th, 2010, there was an earthquake in Christchurch. March 11th, There's an earthquake in Japan. AU is a measure of the distance between the Earth and the Sun. It's like the radius measurement. When the Japan earthquake happened, it was 2 AU away, and we had a magnitude 9 earthquake. The next alignment happens on September 26th this year, and it is between us and the Sun. And at that point, it is 0.38 away from us. Now, gravitational fields, it's 0.38, which is around about 40 million miles. It's 4/10 of the distance to the Sun. Gravitational fields and infrared work on what's called an inverse square relationship. So every unit of distance, the force magnifies by the square of it. When it was 2 away, we had a magnitude 9 earthquake. On September 26, the forces are 25 times greater. When it lines up with the Sun and our planet, there is going to be a cosmic sonic shockwave that will totally blow out our Van Allen belts and our magnetic fields, and will leave the planet totally open to gamma radiation. It's what they call in the Bible Gabriel's trumpet. When Gabriel's horn shall blow, the world shall da-da-da. It's a sonic blast to do with the lining up. It's like watching Star Trek. When the shields go down, bang. If you are out in the open at that point, you will literally be fried alive. It's like the vampire jumping out into the light. So you're going to have all these volcanoes going off. So you're going to have pyroclastic blasts going everywhere. So you've got level 12, 13 magnitude earthquakes, volcanoes at the same point. You know, it's not going to shift a little bit like this. We're talking about the distance here and there dropping like 400 metres down, not little bucklings. Okay? Have you ever seen like images of the French Alps that show the rock strata like that, side on? That happens in the space of a couple of minutes, because the power of the earthquake causes the rock to liquefy and form waves. And then they break, and then when it stops, they reconfigure like that. They tell you that all of these mountain ranges have all been formed over thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. Lie. They happen in the space of minutes. Machu Picchu was a seaside village, because Lake Titicaca is a salt lake and it's 1,500 metres in the air. It happened overnight when the pole shift happens. These are the extremes that these things happen at. So we've got the cosmic waves that are going to hit. You're going to have wind speeds over 1,000 miles an hour. You're going to have surface temperatures of 60 degrees plus. There will be wildfires all over the planet. And on November the 3rd to the 7th, we pass through the tail of this brown dwarf. So we are running a whole asteroid field. We're going to get huge numbers of showers. I've had this vision since I was a child, and now I know what it's about. It's a recurring thing that's coming to me year after year after year after year. Now I know what it's about. We have one saving grace at that time. Our moon is on the lee side. It can potentially shield us from some of the impacts. But I'm being told there will be major cities who will be obliterated by being hit by asteroids. And it's not one or two. There's going to be showers, massive showers of them, for about 3 days. And if you look at the other side of the moon, it is totally pockmarked with impact craters, different to the side that we see. So clearly it's done some sort of protection in the past. I'm feeling that the most likely time when the crust will totally separate and turn upside down will be October 17. Because that's when the gravitational forces... It could go before then. It could go before then. The Mayans were smart. They had the number 0. If I go from 3 BC to 2 BC to 1 BC, what year's next?
0.
The next year is 1 AD. There is no year 0 in our calendar. So straight away, we've lost a year off there. And at the time, there were 3 different calendars running at the turn of the millennium. 3 different calendars. And it's got pulled here, there and everywhere. Okay, it wasn't until Pope Gregory in 540 AD or something like that that we got the calendar that we have now, which interestingly enough was based on an old Mayan calendar, an old Egyptian calendar and all those things. Everybody has dumped everything onto this Illuminati constructed day. Everything to do with the birth of Jesus and all these things, they're all things that are tied into Illuminati ritual. That just happens to be the winter solstice. What a coincidence, because the Illuminati are all into that sort of stuff. Dates and all sorts of things. That comes from them. It's not a real date. At the middle of our galaxy, as with all galaxies, is a black hole, massive black hole. And black holes give out energy in 2 directions. They give it out in pulses that radiate outwards, like when you drop a pebble in a pond and they radiate out. So that's like on a plane, and they send it out in a spike from the centre. Okay, so here's our plane going through here, which is a big disc, and the pulses radiate out from there. So not only do we revolve around the galaxy, but we revolve around another solar system, i.e. Sirius. Ever wondered why we're so connected to Sirius? It's because we're in a paired orbit around a black hole in Alcyon. So we're going up and down as we go around, like that, like a carousel horse going up and down. Is anyone familiar with the Vedic yugas, where they divide civilization up to periods of ascent and descent that covers like 520,000 years or something like that? As we go up here, we're getting further away from the galactic plane, which is a gravity, and we slow down. And then we get pulled back and we accelerate. We are in a position of acceleration at the moment, and we're just about to go into this galactic plane, which is also known as the photon band. We're basically hydrogen, oxygen and carbon. That's what most of us are. So we have a proton here, and we have an electron in what they call a shell. Does everyone sort of remember that from basic science or something like that? And then you get to helium, and helium has 2 and 2, and then you get the next one up and you get another shell and another shell. Even hydrogen, even though it's only got 1 proton here, this other energy shell still exists. Remember how we went back to the sun has these vibrational things that cause the planets to form in certain areas? When we go through the photon band, it's a huge pulse of energy. When we go through the photon band, every single atom in your body gets hit by this energy, and the electrons jump to the next level, or maybe even to the level beyond that. So every single atom in your body becomes energized. And as you do that, you become less dense. Higher vibration, less dense. Which people go, oh, it's 5th dimensional existence. That's the physics of it. It's not some spiritual thing that you have to work to do.